This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. It's Election Day in a number of states, and particular two races, one in Indiana and one in West Virginia, are generating a lot of attention because of their potential for sort of outsider upsets. Indiana, this is to face Joe Donnelly in a real good pickup opportunity for Republicans for U.S. Senate. And you've got two congressmen that are trailing Mike Braun, this recently elected state rep / businessman, who you've heard the commercials on our airwaves, running against Rokita and Messer as, two swamp creatures. And then in West Virginia, you got something that's even a little bit more colorful. I'd say much more colorful, actually. Former Massey Energy CEO, Don Blankenship.
Don Blankenship.
He's running the Republican primary against Attorney General Patrick Morrisey and another candidate to face Joe Manchin. Another good pickup opportunity since I believe Trump won West Virginia by 100 points.
Yes.
I think it was unanimous.
And someone described him as Roy Moore, Donald Trump on steroids.
Well, Blankenship is taking a page out of Donald Trump's book to some extent, talking about, Cocaine Mitch.
Which I've never heard those allegations before.
Cocaine Mitch McConnell is who he's running against, but the idea, again, he's running against the swamp, too. He's a businessman who spent time in jail for a mine incident, and there were safety violations associated with a mine. I shouldn't say an incident. I mean, people died.
Right.
It was a terrible
Mine
event.
collapse, yeah.
Right. So he just recently got out of prison. He's running for Senate. And Trump, trying to learn, I guess, the lesson from the Roy Moore experience, is openly saying Don Blankenship can't beat Joe Manchin. We need to nominate one of the other two. And Blankenship is now firing back at Trump, saying, well, he supported an alleged pedophile in Alabama, so we like Trump's policies, but don't listen to what Trump has to say politically. It's wild.
Yeah, and there's two campaign commercials you have got to hear.
Swamp Captain Mitch McConnell has created millions of jobs for China people. While doing so, Mitch has gotten rich. In fact, his China family has given him tens of millions of dollars. Mitch's swamp people are now running false negative ads against me. They are also childishly calling me despicable and mentally ill. The war to drain the swamp and create jobs for West Virginia people has begun. I will beat Joe Manchin and ditch Cocaine Mitch for the sake of the kids.
What is this
That was
Cocaine Mitch?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the presentation. That was a very spirited read. Couldn't you just listen to Don Blankenship do books on tape? Don Blankenship reads A Tale of Two Cities.
And there's more.
Hi, I'm Don Blankenship, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message. The politicians are running a lot of crazy ads. They blew up the coal mine and then put me in prison. Now they're running ads that say the coal mine blew up and I went to prison. There's no surprise there. But if you want jobs, if you want to end the drug epidemic, and you want to protect the unborn, you need to vote for me. One of my goals as U.S. Senator will be to ditch Cocaine Mitch. When you vote for me, you're voting for the sake of the kids.
And he's holding two.
Cocaine Mitch. I do have to say the theme music is catchy.
Yeah,
it's
very
like
folksy.
like a Bartles and James commercial. So Cocaine Mitch, he's referring to, Mitch McConnell's married to Elaine Chao.
Right.
Shipping company, Chinese shipping company in her family.
Yeah.
A few years back, 90 pounds of cocaine was found on one of the company's ships, but it was never alleged that they were in the cocaine smuggling business.
Oh.
So that's politics, but oh boy.
Oh, so that's how they got the Cocaine Mitch.
For more on the future of the Republican Party and the country, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend David French, who, of course, National Review writer, constitutional lawyer, author, veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I was wondering if you're going to make me break down the Cocaine Mitch scandal. I'm glad you already did it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Boy, what are this is still a very close race between Blankenship and Patrick Morrisey, the Attorney General, but the prospects of Don Blankenship winning that primary, what would that mean, not just in West Virginia, but potentially nationally for Republicans? Sort of the conversation we had about Roy Moore.
Yeah, I mean, well, for one thing, if he were to win the primary, he's just increased Joe Manchin's chances of reelection immeasurably. But if in fact he did make it into Washington, he would be a walking campaign commercial for Democrats every day. I mean, this is a person who was convicted for his role in the deaths of, I believe it was more than 20 minors.
Yeah.
So what possesses a man to think, I've been convicted for my role in the deaths of minors. Oh, I think I'll run for Senate. I mean, there's a bit of a screw loose there just to consider running in those circumstances.
He must be looking at who's in office.
It really is stunning, the collection of people who will run in these Republican primaries, and it's rather stunning the collection of people that a lot of Republican primary voters will vote for, so long as they say the right things and insult the right people.
And isn't he in the lead right now? I mean, if they're
close, yeah, a couple of polls,
very close. I mean, yes, the poll, depending on the poll, I think the last three polls that I've seen have swapped winners back and forth. So we won't know maybe until late tonight.
Well, more conventionally speaking, but yet perhaps another, canary in the coal mine.
Hey, too soon. Come on, Dan.
The idea of Mike Braun beating, particularly Todd Rokita, who, at least my understanding from Indiana politics next door here, she sort of had the inside track from the outset. He's a former statewide elected official, been in Congress for a number of years now. And for Mike Braun to split the middle between the two congressmen and potentially win tonight, does that say something about the intensity of the anti-incumbent mood in the body politics, starting with the GOP primary electorates?
It doesn't seem to have really abated since 2016. There is still a lot of anti-incumbent intensity. You're seeing on the Democratic side, there are insurgent candidates that are gaining momentum that are disturbing some of the Democrats because they're afraid that their primary voters are going to vote for people who are not as electable in the general election. And I think both primary electorates are, because remember, it's a much smaller subset of voters, both primary electorates are in a very militant mood. I don't think that has changed since 2016. If anything, maybe it's even been exacerbated since 2016. And so, during these primaries, we could see some pretty wild upsets. And I know the Democrats are worried about that and have been deploying resources to try to stop that.
There's a report that the White House is trying to do some things on spending after the reaction I don't think they anticipated, the negative reaction from the base to that $1.3 trillion omnibus bill that was passed by Republicans, signed by the president, doing one rescission package, a few $100 million worth of rescissions, and then looking at future rescission packages aimed at that omnibus spending bill. Can they claw their way back into the good graces of an electorate that's upset about profligate spending in D.C., as they seem to be trying to do?
Well, I don't think they can claw their way back. Well, there are two questions. One, can they claw their way back in the good graces of an electorate? And I do think some symbolic measures might actually go at least part way towards mollifying some of the electorate. But I don't think they can claw back substantively. I mean, substantively, it's just too big a bill. It was too big a spending bill. If they're going to try to claw it back, you would be dealing with cuts that would cause, real controversy. And the reason why the spending bill was so big is it's really easy to say, yeah, we need to spend less money. It's a lot harder to go ahead and spend less money, especially since the programs that cost the most also happen to be the most popular programs that the government has. So it's a lot easier politically to say, yeah, we intend to cut back. It's a lot easier to do some symbolic cuts. It's a lot harder to do real cutting because then you run up against, the popularity of these programs.
I'm reading your latest article, National Review, an open letter to Trump's evangelical defenders. What exactly do you want them to know?
Well, look, there's this remarkable thing that's occurring since 1998, and I'm old enough to remember 1998 when Bill Clinton had an affair with an intern, lied about it under oath, and a number of other women came forward with allegations about Bill Clinton that evangelical leaders were rightfully outraged by that. And they said, look, this is unacceptable conduct. It doesn't matter that America's at peace. It doesn't matter that America's prosperous. The character of a leader matters. And now some of these same leaders are singing a very different tune now that there's a Republican in the White House. And look, these things are either wrong or they're not. And there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, we appreciate these good judicial nominations, but the kind of misconduct that Trump's engaged in is deeply troubling. And yet all too many of them won't do it. They'll even go around and go further and contradict themselves. I mean, Franklin Graham in 1998 wrote this very strong op-ed in the Wall Street Journal talking about how it isn't just private conduct. And then this month he gave an interview to the Associated Press where he said this is nobody's business but Trump's and Melania's. So, it can't be that the standards change depending on whether there's a D or an R by a person's name. And what it does is it makes the evangelical movement look just craven and political rather than principled.
Right, and it folds them into the rest of the culture, which is both sides long arguing this character doesn't matter. We just had this discussion last hour about the latest New York Attorney General to have to resign because of alleged sexual misconduct. I guess it was no longer alleged with Spitzer, but but I mean, they say character doesn't matter, privacy of bedroom, blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter, and then you have the Me Too movement, the left element of the Me Too movement that otherwise repeats that mantra in almost a Pavlovian way when any scandal erupts. But now Schneiderman has to go, and my point is, where are they to defend Schneiderman for these apparent S&M relationships he had, because this stuff is the privacy of his own home. It doesn't matter that it doesn't impact his public duties as an attorney general and so on and so forth. Isn't that the argument they always make? So it's difficult to find where the standard is on the left or sometimes the right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, on the left, I think that particularly younger millennial progressives have a different view of this than maybe the older progressives who defended Bill Clinton against, in the impeachment process. A lot of them were actually appalled to learn about Bill Clinton. And I think some of the younger millennials are saying, no, we're going to put up with this. And I think it's one of the reasons for the Me Too movement. But also one of the reasons why some of these allegations never saw the light of day for years and years and years. And you saw this in the Schneiderman controversy. There were women who their own friends urged them not to come forward because Schneiderman was too important for the movement politically. Mm-hmm. And think about that. These are women who were being abused, and people close to them were saying, but he's too important politically. That's a poisonous mentality. That's a poisonous morality. I think it's beginning to change. I hope it's beginning to change. And we're seeing, selected people's careers fall apart as their deeds are coming to light. But we still have too much in this country of I'm going to point out every way in which the Democrats are depraved, and I'm going to defend as long as I possibly can the people in my own tribe.
He is David French, writer at National Review, constitutional lawyer, best-selling author, veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. David, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer.